Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today we're just going to do a tutorial about how to import your own objects into BMX Streets Pipe. And a lot of people have been wondering how to do this, and I have a pretty decent way of doing it. It's a little bit complicated, as you'll see when we go through this, but we'll try to make it as understandable and painless as possible. So we're going to need a few tools for this. First one being Unity Assets Bundle Extractor. You want to use version 2.2. We're going to use Blender for this. You could use pretty much any 3D modeling software you have. We need DevX Unity Unpacker Magic Tools. The version really doesn't matter here. This guy's constantly updating this program. I've used anywhere from 2 all the way up to version 6, so no issues there. Also, we need a text editor. I prefer Notepad++. And then finally, we need Unity 2017.3.0 F3. Now keep in mind, with the new update that it's going to be released, we're going to have to switch Unity versions, and that may affect a few things that go on with this tutorial, but I think for the most part I've done some tests with the new version and it seems to work pretty much the same. So first thing we want to do is we want to go find our pipe data folder, and we want to drag the whole thing into DevX Unity into this little window here. I'm going to push OK and wait for this list to populate. Okay, now I'm going to open up the scenes, go to this scene/pipe.unity, which is the main level. And we're going to find, here's a little object I've actually already created, but we're going to make an entirely new one. But what I want you to notice here is we have the custom object here. The first object you see is called the game object. And you can see that here. We have the class name, game object. We can also see where it's located. This is at level 3, path ID 17001. And then we notice that it has a mesh collider attached to it, has a mesh filter, a mesh renderer, and a transform. Now, to import our own objects, we need to create one of each of these files as well. You'll notice again that these other files have a plus symbol next to them. You can expand it. So the cube is actually attached to this mesh collider. The same cube is attached to the mesh filter. And then our mesh renderer has the material assignment. The material then has its own textures. For this one, we're not going to worry much about materials. I'll show you how to apply one to it, but we don't really need to make our own. We can use one that's already in game. So now let's go over here. We're going to open up our pipe data folder, find our level 3 file. And the reason I added this game object, this custom one before, is so that we have each of these already laid out for us. We don't have to go digging through the files to find these. If you start with a fresh install of pipe, you're going to have to do that. You'll have to find a game object, a transform, a mesh filter, a mesh collider, and a mesh renderer, and just make text dumps of them. So I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to export them as a dump. I'm going to put them in this tutorial folder I've made. Now I'm going to go in here. I'm going to open all of these with Notepad++ and start with the first one. So let's name this tutorial object. Here is a list of all the component pair data. That is just telling it which of these things are attached to it, which in this case is all of them. So you'll see each of these numbers correspond with each of the other files. We have 17002, which is our transform, and so on. So what we want to do is we're going to be adding new files. So if we look at our path ID here, the highest one we have so far is 17005. So the next one we add is going to be 17006, and that's going to be our game object. So then everything that comes after it is going to be sequential in that order. So let's change these from their current numbers to, this one will be 7, since the game object is already 6. This one's going to be 8, 9, and 10. Go ahead and save that. And then in the next files, we need to make it point back to this object. And actually, I'm gonna try this, but I haven't had much luck with changing the rotational data. I'm gonna try leaving that as 1 though and see what happens. You can always find a transform that's already completely zeroed out and use that instead. It doesn't matter as long as you change this number to reflect the new game object. So let's change that now to 17006. Our mesh filter we need to change to 17006. We'll leave it as the cube object for now. 17006. Again, leave it as the cube object. 17006. And we'll leave the same material that was on there. Let's go ahead and save all of these. And we're going to import our new object here. Let's copy the type, the game object type. Go to File, Add, paste the type there. Don't have to change anything else. We're going to do the same for all 5 of these files. Copy. Paste it. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually go in and we're going to add a skate park model after this, but I just want to get the basic model set, or the basic game object set up first. So let's go ahead and import all those dumps that we just made. Import the game object. Import the transform, import the mesh filter, import the mesh collider, and import the mesh renderer. Go ahead and save this as a level 3 file, and then drag that and replace it in the pipe data folder. Now we'll go back into DevX Unity here, drag the pipe data folder back in, hit OK again, let this repopulate, and we just want to go through and make sure that everything is showing up like it should. So back to scenes/pipe.unity and tutorial object down here. Let's open this up, and we see it's using the cube in both the mesh filter and mesh collider, and it's using the wood. So let's click the game object, hit making 3D scene, and there we go, we can see it there. If you can't see anything when you click on this and click 3D scene, that means that something is wrong, and you can usually spot it. If it's not in this format, you know, something may not have a little plus symbol next to it. That means that a number is wrong or something in the dump file that you made, and you have to go back and troubleshoot that. So let's go ahead and get an object to use that's not just a boring cube. I'm going to go to this 3dwarehouse.sketchup.com. It is a great place for free 3D skate park models. So let's go ahead and search skate park. And I'm just going to grab a random park here. Download it as a collada file. Let's open that up. And I'm going to drag this model into my tutorial folder and close out of that. Now I'm going to go into Blender I'm going to delete all the stuff here that we don't need. And then I'm going to go import the Collada file. Okay, let me just get rid of this guy right here. And then I'm going to select all, hit the tab. Oh, actually I need to merge these. These are separate objects, so let me select all, push Control J to join them. You select all with A, by the way. And then we're going to hit the tab key to go into edit mode. And then I'm going to hit the A key twice to select all of it. And then I'm going to hit the U key and just click Smart UV Project. And that will ensure that our texture gets placed across the map. Let's go ahead and export this now as a wavefront.obj file. We'll export it in the same folder. I'll call it tutorial object and export it. And now we want to open up Unity. We want to import new asset. We want to find our tutorial file here. Let's go to the skatepark object. And I'm just going to drag it into this hierarchy window here, which will automatically, it should automatically zero out all the transform data, which is what you want. So let's go ahead, and we don't need to do anything else to this. All we want is the mesh. So let's go File, Build and Run. And it's going to build a game of sorts that we can extract from using Unity Assets Bundle Extractor. Go ahead and hit quit when this little thing comes up. Now we need to go to the documents and find the file that we just made. You will have previously set this up already, so you should know which folder it's in. It's actually, I don't even remember what file this is called. Let's see. You go to build settings and see. It's in Documents Tutorial. That's where I've set it up. So here we see kind of a very similar looking game to how Pipe is. You know, you have the executable here, and then we have ramp data instead of pipe data. So we want to open up this shared assets 0 in our Unity Asset Bundle Extractor. So let's go ahead and navigate over there. Shared assets 0. And we see this one asset named default, and it is a mesh. It's always going to be kind of at the top here. We want to export that as raw instead of a dump. I'm just going to name it skatepark raw. Now that's all we need from there, really. Let's go ahead and close out of that. I'm going to minimize this so everything's kind of out of the way. Now I want to go back into the pipe data folder. I'm going to go to resources, open Unity default resources. This is where I like to store my meshes. So I'm going to find an existing mesh, copy the type, add a new mesh, paste the type, make note of this path ID. Okay, so it's 17001. And then go up here to the new object you added. Let's hit import raw. Find our tutorial file or folder, and we want to import the skatepark raw.dat, and then go ahead and save this. Now I want to take my Unity default resources here, and get it back into the resources folder. Okay, now we need to change our mesh collider and mesh filter to reflect this new object. So here we had it pointing to file ID 5, which is Unity default resources, and 10202, which is the cube. And we want it to point to our new file, or our new mesh rather. So I'm going to show you real quick how you can find these file IDs, because that was a little confusing for me at first to figure out. If you open up your level 3 file, or any file for that matter, you can go to View, Dependencies, and it'll give you a list of all the other assets that this asset bundle kind of has access to or is linked to. One thing to note here is that each one of these numbers actually increases by 1. If you use the number 0 when working in level 3, it means that it's going to be pointing to a path ID within the level 3 file. So the 0 down here is actually going to be a 1. This 1 is going to be a 2. This 2 is going to be a 3, and so on. So here we have our Unity default resources, which is 4 here, but we know that it's going to be increased by 1. So it becomes a 5, and that's where we get this number. So I'm going to change this now to the 17001, and also here in the mesh collider, 17001. Go ahead and save both of those. Now I'm going to find our files that we added by sorting by path ID. So we have our mesh filter here. Let's import that dump now that we've edited it. Mesh filter and mesh collider. Go ahead and save those. Close out of all this, and I'm going to drag that level 3 back into the pipe data folder. Now I'm going to open up DevX Unity again and then drag in the pipe data folder again, just to see if we can see the changes and spot any errors. So scene/pipe.unity, go down to tutorial object, let's hit making 3D scene. And there we go, we can see our skate park. That's badly textured, but it is textured. Let's go ahead and test it in game. Now that transform data that I had mentioned earlier may affect this. I might have to add a completely new transform to it if my physics get all screwed up. Okay, it appears to be working okay. And we can already see our new skate park outside the fence here. Got some weird collision stuff going on, it looks like. Let's see if it's like that everywhere or just kind of in that one spot. Alright, let's go see if we can figure out what's going on here. My guess is that it does have something to do with the transform data. So let's go ahead and replace that and see what happens. So I'm actually gonna go back into DevX Unity and find a transform that is zeroed out. Well, here's one that's zeroed on the rotational value, which is what we want. So I'm going to borrow this one. This is at 3093 in level 3. So let's go into level 3. Go to asset, level 3, 3093. I'm going to export this as a dump into our tutorial folder. 3093. Let me go ahead and edit this. And we need to again change this to point to our new game object, which I believe was 17006. Let's double check. Yes, it was. And I'm going to change the position to 0. You can leave these minus symbols, it doesn't really matter. Now here we need to get rid of all this children data here. I'm going to just put zeros here. Go ahead and save that. Now I'm going to re-import that over the top of the transform here. Go ahead and save. And let's try that again. And hopefully we have some better luck this time. Which we don't. There may be some invisible walls as well. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with this. It's acting like a box collider is what it's acting like. I'm going to drag the pipe data folder back into here and just have another look. I think I see the issue already. This convex thing, we want that to be 0. And I know that just from adding mesh colliders in Unity and seeing what happens when you hit convex. Let's change that to false. Enabled, yes. Don't know if we need trigger. But let's save that. Go to open level 3 once again. Sort by path ID. And let's find our mesh collider. Import dump. tutorial, mesh collider. Save that. Drag that back into pipe data. And we'll try yet again. And I imagine you'll probably find yourself in this situation more often than not. It can be pretty frustrating. You just have to have a lot of patience with the game. Just really sit and use DevX Unity. It's a great tool to find and troubleshoot problems. Because if you study how the files look or are supposed to look like in the beginning, then you'll know what it should look like. You'll notice when something's out of place. So it looks like everything is working well. The texture we could adjust to make it look prettier, but that's not really super important at this point. I will do another tutorial on doing materials, making them look a lot nicer. Maybe also doing a multi-object skate park, but that'll be kind of a future thing. But I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and we'll see you for the next one.